Discover the miraculous legacy of Isaac's descendants, God's transforming plan revealed today. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the heir of Canaan was thick with expectation, promises of a future still echoing beneath the parched ground. Abraham, the patriarch, aged but resolute, stood alongside Sarah, his wife, whose laughter had faded into the sorrow of countless unanswered prayers. The whispers of countless stars danced in the heavens, a divine promise of descendants as numerous as the celestial bodies, yet the silence of unfulfilled longing cast heavy shadows upon their hearts. As the sun crested the horizon, bathing the land in a warm golden glow, a divine proclamation pierced the dawn: God, once again, visited Abraham. With each word, age-old doubts trembled. Sarah will bear you a son, he proclaimed, stirring the dust of faith long settled. It was assured, the impossible made certain. With trembling hearts and joyful tears, Abraham and Sarah embraced the divine message. Isaac was to be born, a beacon of hope illuminating the barren land with the vitality of a new chapter brimming with promise. You will name him Isaac. The voice of the Lord resonated within Abraham, the weight of joy mingling with the remembrance of past sorrows. Laughter, once scarce, erupted within their home as the life of their promise took form. Isaac's birth burst forth into existence, a testament not only to God's faithfulness but to the legacy destined to transform nations, unfurling truths that would shape generations. But faith, even rooted in certainty, is often tested. Days of laughter and joy gave way to a profound and heart-wrenching test. God instructed Abraham to offer Isaac, his beloved son, as a burnt offering atop the solemn heights of Mount Moriah. A chill gripped Abraham's heart. The very ground felt laden with the pressure of unwavering faith. Would this love require surrender? Each step toward the mountain was a battle within, as questions clawed at son and father. How could the promise stem from sacrifice? Through it all, Isaac remained blissfully unaware, trusting as he walked beside his father, an innocent curiosity radiating from his youthful countenance. The altar awaited, and with it, the unanswered prayers hung like a veil, a poignant silence where faith and fear entwined on the precipice of a divine intent. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The solemnity enveloped as they reached the mountaintop, the altar loomed before them. The act of obedience would cement Abraham's faith through sacrifice, echoing through generations to come. Yet, even as the knife shimmered in the twilight, hope flickered in distant hearts, awaiting the unfolding of a grander narrative. Amidst this sacred tension, God saw the unwavering heart. A voice echoed from above, stopping Abraham's hand. A lamb provided, symbolizing a promise renewed, a covenant sustained. Isaac was saved, the lineage secured, and with it, a legacy born of laughter and faith, ready to carry forth into the story of mankind. As Isaac looked into the faces of those stars that night, a new understanding took root. His own son would come, dreams intertwining with divine plans, and the world would watch as the inextricable bond of faith and struggle unfurled, propelling the tale of salvation through sacrifice. The questions of how, when, and why danced in the air, yet the promise remained unwavering, inviting all into a narrative etched in the annals of eternity. And it came to pass, in the days following the divine intervention upon the mount, that Abraham returned to Beersheba, fortified by the assurance of God's promise. The laughter of Isaac filled the air, joy tangling his curls as he ran through the tent flaps, an echo of life renewed. Abraham, filled with gratitude and awe, often recounted the weight of his faith made heavy upon Mount Moriah, where his very soul had wrestled with the concept of sacrifice. What is this life? He pondered, an offering in the great tapestry of God's design. As Isaac grew, so did the bond between father and son. Each shared moment was a thread woven into the fabric of their legacy. They shared the stories of old, the tales of creation beneath the stars, the covenant of the blessed, and the promise foretold of a multitude rising from his seed. Yet, such joy was not to last in an untroubled manner. And lo, it was revealed that Sarah bore not just the laughter of Isaac, but also the heavy burdens of motherhood. "Where is the promise for our household?" she spoke softly to Abraham, the question lingering in the stillness of the evening, as shadows danced around them. The age of their years weighed heavily among them, yearning faces showed resilience, yet weariness strained under the weight of longing. "Pray, my beloved," Abraham urged, "for the God who called us from Ur of the Chaldeans and brought us to this place has not forsaken us." He lifted his hands towards the heavens, seeking divine favor. "Make straight our hearts for the days ahead." In time, the flame of desire ignited within Sarah's heart, her spirit whispered encouragement to her husband, urging him to take Hagar, her maidservant, as a means to fulfill the promise they had long awaited. The air thick with expectation once again filled their tent, for God's plan must not be delayed. Abraham, although hesitant, heeded his wife's counsel, compelled by the yearning for descendants as numerous as the stars. As he lay with Hagar, so was born Ishmael, a testament to faith that, while misguided, sought to grasp the promise. Yet a shadow fell over their abode, jealousy and strife seeped in through the cracks of their decisions. Sarah's heart, once tender with hope, became embittered upon seeing the bond between Hagar and her child. "Cast out this bondwoman and her son," she demanded to Abraham, her voice echoing with anguish. "For the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." Abraham's heart was torn. Would he forsake Hagar and Ishmael, these lives tied to his flesh? That night, the Lord spoke to Abraham, "Do not be distressed. Listen to the voice of your wife, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named." With a heavy heart, Abraham rose early, providing provisions for Hagar and Ishmael. He sent them away into the wilderness, a somber farewell, feeling the heavy weight of choices made. This was a grim chapter amongst the pages of faith, yet beneath it, strands of divine purpose threaded their way into history. That in the solitude of the desert, an angel of the Lord appeared to Hagar, saying, "Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is." In that barren land, life would spring forth anew. God supplied water from a well, a promise of existence even where hope seemed lost. And thus the stage was set for the unfolding of a greater legacy. Isaac would be the child of covenant, while Ishmael would forge a different path, a multitude still awaiting revelation. As this tale whispered onward through time, one question loomed: how would these divergent destinies intertwine in God's grand narrative? The hearts of men and women would continue to seek the answers, for divine purpose was being crafted in the weave of history, leading them ever closer to the fulcrum of salvation. And it came to pass, after the departure of Hagar and Ishmael, that Abraham dwelt in Beersheba, his heart stricken with the weight of separation. Yet, amid his sorrow, the promise of God lingered like a cherished ember. Time flowed as the sun rose and set, and Isaac waxed stronger, blessed with the joy of life that only the covenant could bestow. "Behold, my son," Abraham would often say, resting his hand upon Isaac's head, "you are the joy of our old age, the fulfillment of the promise that rests upon our lineage." Isaac, with eyes bright as the morning star, would gaze upon his father with reverence, recognizing the mantle of faith that lay heavy upon their shoulders. That in the fullness of time, God spoke again unto Abraham, saying, "Your days shall be multiplied, and I shall establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear unto you." Thus, Abraham rejoiced, for he understood that the divine tapestry was still in motion, and threads were yet to be woven from the fabric of their faith. Then the day arrived when the Lord visited Abraham with divine assurance and set forth a commandment. The three visitors came, as was customary among the faithful, and Abraham prepared a feast for them. Even as he stood in awe, sensing the weight of heaven in their presence, the Lord spoke, declaring, "I will certainly return to you at the proper time, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son." At this proclamation, Sarah, who had listened from the tent, laughed softly in disbelief, for she had aged beyond childbearing years. "Shall I have pleasure, my lord, when I am so old?" She doubted, grasping the past with her heart and struggling to embrace the future, and the Lord inquired of Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" The truth of that moment pierced the veil of human despair, illuminating the path of faith that lay ahead. nothing was beyond the reach of divine capability. So the days turned into months, and as the seasons changed, Isaac was born unto Abraham and Sarah, and their joy was complete. They named him Isaac, which means laughter, a testament to the joy returned to them. It echoed the laughter born from hope rekindled, yet, even as they rejoiced, a shadow of uncertainty lay beneath the surface. The bondwoman's son, Ishmael, continued to thrive in the wilderness, and a deep divide marked their destinies. Sarah's heart, though brimmed with joy over Isaac, found itself stirred by the whispers of doubt concerning Ishmael's role among them. Cast out the bondwoman and her son, her heart echoed once again, but now she sought the counsel of the Lord more fervently, seeking his divine wisdom, and God, ever faithful, reassured Abraham, saying, "Do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad, for I will make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed." With heavy heart, Abraham rose once more, compressing his feelings of grief into action. He took bread and a skin of water, casting them before Hagar and her child, sending them forth into the wilderness once more, yet God's promise wrapped around them like a cloak, even as they wandered the barren desert. As Hagar traversed those arid lands, the despair sought to grip her soul, and she wept, for her provisions diminished. But God, ever merciful, heard the cries of Ishmael and filled the air with life-giving sustenance, providing a well so their lives might continue. There God opened her eyes, revealing the hope that was hidden in her despair, and thus, two paths diverged, as Isaac grew in wisdom and grace through the blessing of the covenant, while Ishmael became a nation mighty among men, each a testimony to God's unfathomable plan, and as the threads of Abraham's legacy spread across the earth, one solemn truth emerged: the time had come for God's purpose to unfold, for his hand shaped the nations and guided the hearts of men towards the ultimate promise. Waiting on the horizon. The hearts of all who believed lingered in expectancy, for what greater unfolding could this promise bring? For God had yet more to reveal in his sovereign plan, a story stretching beyond generations, awaiting the fullness of time to bring forth redemption. And it came to pass that Isaac grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. The household rejoiced, and the laughter echoed throughout the tent, filled with the promise of God's faithfulness. But as the celebration unfolded, Sarah beheld the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, playing nearby. Her heart, stirred by the memories of past sorrows, was filled once again with the fire of jealousy. She turned to Abraham and said, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." The matter distressed Abraham greatly, for he loved his son Ishmael. Yet the Lord spoke unto Abraham in the night, saying, "Do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called." With divine directive, God reassured Abraham, promising, "I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, for he is your seed." Thus, at dawn, Abraham arose early, filled with sorrow yet compelled by faith. He took bread and a flask of water and gave them to Hagar, setting them upon her shoulder along with Ishmael. Then he sent her away, and she departed into the wilderness of Beersheba. As the sun climbed in the sky, their provisions ran dry, and Hagar wandered in despair, casting her son under one of the shrubs. She sat down facing away from him, for she could not bear to see her child die. And as she wept, the anguish of a mother echoed in the heavenlies, yet, God, who sees all our tribulations, heard the voice of the lad. From heaven, the angel of God called to Hagar, saying, "What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She filled the skin with water and gave the boy drink. And God was with Ishmael as he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness, becoming an expert archer. He settled in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife from the land of Egypt. Meanwhile, in the heart of the covenant, Isaac flourished under Abraham's loving guidance. As the years passed, God tested Abraham, saying, "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you." Abraham's heart trembled at the command, and all the heaven seemed to hold its breath. He rose early in the morning, taking with him Isaac and two of his young men, and they set out for the land of Moriah. With every step, his spirit wrestled between the promise and the command. As they ascended the mountain, Isaac asked, "My father, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replied, "My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." The words hung heavy in the air, a foreboding echo of the sacrifice, one that held the weight of destiny within it. As they reached the place God had shown him, Abraham built an altar and laid the wood in order. At that moment, the silence of the mountain was pierced by the command of God, a divine revelation promising that through Isaac's lines would come a multitude, greater than the stars in the sky. The ground trembled beneath him as Abraham reached for the knife. Yet, just as the moment of completion drew near, the angel of the Lord called to him, "Abraham, Abraham." And he answered, "Here I am." The voice of destiny swelled into his very being, filled with promise beyond comprehension. "Do not lay your hand upon the lad or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And there, in the thicket, God provided a ram, a testimony of ultimate provision and sacrifice. As Abraham sacrificed the ram instead of his son, he named the place "The Lord Will Provide." And from that moment, God's covenant promise echoed through generations, revealing the plan for redemption that awaited, and the sacrifice that was yet to come. Thus, the curtain lifted upon the unfolding of divine sovereignty, for the time was drawing near when the ultimate promise would be manifest. What, then, awaited in the fullness of time? What promise lay shrouded in sacred mystery? For in God's perfect design, a greater revelation lingered just beyond the horizon of history. And it came to pass after these things that the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham a second time out of heaven. "By myself I have sworn, said the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son, in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice." So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they arose and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba, rejoicing in the promises of God, his heart filled with awe and wonder at the mighty acts of the Almighty. But in the days that followed, news came to Abraham that Melchizedek, king of Salem, approached him with an offering of bread and wine, and blessed him, saying, "Blessed be Abraham of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." And Abraham gave him a tithe of all that he had won in the battle against the kings. This encounter deepened the promise of God over Abraham, revealing that through him would come a lineage that would forever impact the earth. In the twilight years of Abraham's life, as Sarah passed into the eternal embrace of her Lord, he mourned and sought to honor her memory. He went to the children of Het, saying, "I am a stranger and a sojourner among you. Sell me a burial site that I may bury my dead out of my sight." The sons of Het replied, "Hear us, my lord, you are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our sepulchres, none of us will withhold from you his tomb, that you may bury your dead." Yet Abraham sought a specific place, the cave of Machpelah, which belonged to Ephron the Hittite. He paid the full price, setting the seal of God's covenant in that land, for he understood that the land was a promise from God to his descendants, a heritage that would stretch forth for generations to come. As the days turned to years, Isaac grew in strength and wisdom, becoming a man of prayer and devotion. He went out into the fields to meditate, seeking communion with the God of his father. One day, as he looked up, behold, the camels came, and with them the servant of Abraham, sent to seek a bride for Isaac from his kindred. When he saw her, Rebekah, he loved her, and she became an answer to his prayers, a fulfillment of divine promise. As God guided the hearts of those who sought to honor him, the marriage was adorned with blessings, and they prospered under God's watchful eye. However, even as the blessing of God rested upon them, the land was not without challenge, for there were those who sought to end the heritage of promise. Yet, among the shadows of conflict, God spoke again, reviving the promise, saying, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for my servant Abraham's sake." In the wake of these events, an echo of divine purpose resonated through the generations, for God was weaving a story of redemption and hope, a tapestry stretching toward a future yet unveiled. What greater destiny awaited Isaac's children? Would the covenant promise manifest in ways unimagined? For the unfolding plan of God held that very mystery, drawing closer with each passing day, leading hearts to the promise of a coming king who would change the course of history. And it came to pass that in the days that followed, Isaac and Rebekah settled into life together, and God blessed them with bountiful days. Yet, in the fullness of their joy, there was a cloud upon the horizon, for Rebekah was barren and unable to bear children. Isaac, burdened by the weight of this sorrow, turned his heart to prayer. He entreated the Lord for his wife, pleading earnestly. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah conceived. But when her days were fulfilled, she felt within her a great struggle, stirring in her womb like two nations at war. And she sought the Lord to understand what this turmoil meant. The Lord spoke unto her, saying, Two nations are in your womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from your bowels. The one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. This revelation marked the beginning of a legacy that would intertwine the destinies of the nations yet to arise from her seed. As the appointed time came, the children were born, Esau, red and hairy, like a garment of fur, and Jacob, holding Esau's heel. Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob, seeing in him the promise that God had declared. In the quiet of their tent, she often reflected on the words of the Lord, pondering what the future would hold, her heart woven into the threads of divine purpose. As the years wore on, Esau grew strong, a man of the field, he was a skilled hunter, embodying the vigor of the wild. Jacob, however, remained a quiet man, dwelling in tents, seeking knowledge and the ways of the Lord. In their contrasting ways, a subtle tension arose, for the nature of a blessing longed to be fulfilled, echoing through the corridors of time. One fateful day, as Esau returned from the fields, weary and famished, he encountered Jacob preparing a savory stew. Exhausted, he exclaimed, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Jacob, seizing the moment, replied, Sell me your birthright. Esau, consumed with hunger, scoffed at the idea of a birthright and declared, What profit shall this birthright do to me? In that moment, the weight of the promise was traded for a single meal, a foolish exchange marking a crucial turning point in the unfolding plan of God. Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he did eat and drink, rising up afterward and despising his birthright. Yet in the depths of his actions lay the sovereign hand of God, orchestrating a greater narrative that spanned generations. Time moved forward and the promise of Isaac began to bear fruit across the land. But even as the blessings poured forth, strife emerged within and beyond their family, testing the bonds of kinship. Jacob's heart yearned for the blessing of his father, seeking his rightful place in the family's divine heritage, and while the world around them threatened to tear at the seams of their lineage, God remained steadfast, preparing the hearts of those who would carry forth his covenant. What legacy awaited Jacob in the shadow of his brother? Would the promises of God unfold through the choices of man's folly and desires? For the Lord's purpose cannot be thwarted, and the tapestry of his plan was beginning to reveal its intricate beauty, leading to a truth that would change the face of creation. And it came to pass that Isaac, aware of the eternal weight of the blessing that loomed over his household, grew increasingly troubled. For he sensed that the time was drawing near when he must impart his blessings upon his sons. In spirit, he was moved to seek the counsel of the Lord, often retreating to the fields to offer his prayers, murmuring them beneath the stars. Now, Rebekah, discerning the disposition of her husband, overheard him speaking to Esau, saying, Go, my son, to the field, and hunt me some venison. And prepare me savory meat, such as I love, that I may eat, and my soul may bless thee before I die. It was then her heart quickened, knowing the implications of the blessing that was meant to rest upon Jacob. In the stillness of the night, Rebekah devised a plan, seeking to align herself with the divine promise that the Lord had declared over her sons. She instructed Jacob, saying, Listen to me, my son, and do as I command thee. Go now to the flock and fetch me 2 kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loves. Then, thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and bless thee before his death. Jacob hesitated, saying, Mother, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I will bring a curse upon myself, and not a blessing. Rebekah answered, Upon me be thy curse, my son, only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. Thus, Jacob went and brought the goats to his mother, who skillfully prepared them while Jacob wore his brother's garments, draped in the skin of the kids, so he could deceive his father. When they approached Isaac, he inquired, Who art thou, my son? Jacob responded, I am Esau, thy firstborn, I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. Isaac, feeling the garments, was puzzled but said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He desired to know more, so he asked him, Art thou really my son Esau? Jacob persisted in the deception, urging his father to eat the meal he had prepared. At last, Isaac, though filled with unease, partook of the meal and blessed Jacob, declaring, Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let peoples serve thee, and nations bow down to thee, be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. As soon as Jacob had scarcely gone out, Esau arrived with his game, presenting it to his father with haste, yet Isaac trembled greatly and understood that he had been deceived. Esau cried out, saying, Bless me, even me also, O my father. But Isaac, distraught in his heart, said, Thy brother came with subtlety and hath taken away thy blessing. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept bitterly, saying, Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. Isaac consoled Esau, bestowing upon him a lesser blessing, yet the ground felt shaken, and the echoes of division pierced through the household. In that moment, the threads of God's sovereign plan tightened, as the destinies of nations began to diverge and unfold. The air was thick with anticipation. What struggles and triumphs awaited the sons of Isaac? Would the covenant promise continue to weave through the fabric of time despite the shadows of strife and heartache? The Lord's purposes would not be forever veiled, and soon, the mantle of faith would require a far greater trust in the unseen unfolding of his holy decree. And it came to pass, in the aftermath of the storm that rent the hearts within Isaac's tent, that Jacob fled from his father's house, borne upon the wings of fear and uncertainty. He remembered the words of his mother Rebekah, who had entreated him to escape the wrath of Esau, saying, Flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and tarry there a few days until your brother's anger be turned away. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting hues of crimson across the land, Jacob journeyed towards the north. His heart was troubled, for he had grasped not only the blessing but also the burden of betrayal. Alone, he wandered, his spirit wrestling with the choices that had been wrought, and the echo of Esau's anguished cries loomed in his ears. When Jacob reached a certain place, he turned aside to rest for the night, for the darkness had fallen heavily around him. He took of the stones of that place, and laid them for his pillows, and he dreamed. In his dream, he beheld a ladder set upon the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending upon it, and lo, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed, and thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. The words of the Almighty filled Jacob's heart with assurance and fear alike. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. He exclaimed, as he awoke from his sleep, a veil of awe wrapping around him, that he took the stone that he had placed at his head and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it, sanctifying it as Bethel, the house of God. Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God, and this stone, which I have set for a pillar, shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. As dawn broke over the horizon, lighting the path before him, Jacob arose, steeling his resolve, knowing that the journey ahead would not be without trials. His heart felt the dual weight of consequence and promise, threading through the tapestry of his destiny, yet, unbeknownst to Jacob, the Lord had set in motion a great orchestration, a purpose far beyond his understanding. There awaited a transformation both in him and in the lineage that would arise from him, for the Lord had chosen him to carry forth the blessing of Abraham, and the covenant would stand firm through the generations. But as Jacob ventured forth, the shadows of doubt taunted him, echoing the uncertainty of his choice. Would he, the supplanter, be transformed to a prince of God, or would the strife wrought be his eternal legacy? The path unfolded before him, shrouded in divine mystery. What awaited at the end of this road only the hand of God could unveil. And Jacob journeyed onward, his heart still entwined with the echoes of the dream from Bethel. The road was rugged and the wilderness vast, yet the promise of the Lord remained a guiding light in the midst of the encroaching night. As he walked, he could not help but ponder the weight of his actions. Anxiety clung to him like a shadow, whispering of his brother's wrath and the uncertainties that lay ahead. As the days turned to nights and nights returned to days, he came upon a well in the region of Haran. It was there that he paused, for the weariness of his journey pressed upon him. Raising his eyes, he beheld a flock of sheep gathered at the well, and near them stood young women, their countenances adorned with grace. As they drew water from the depths, Jacob's heart stirred with a sense of purpose. "Brethren," he called forth, approaching the women, "whose daughters are ye? Tell me, I pray thee." They replied, "We are the daughters of Laban, the son of Nahor." And as the words fell from their lips, the very name echoed with a resonance deep within Jacob's spirit, for Laban was indeed his mother's brother. Feeling the breath of the Almighty sweep over him, he said, "Is he well? And how cometh it that your flocks gather here?" They answered, "He is well, and behold, Rachel cometh with the sheep." And as Rachel drew near, her beauty was like that of a dawn breaking over the horizon. The moment met Jacob's eyes, and a fierce tide of longing swept through his heart. In his spirit, the weight of destiny was heavy, yet at the same time, the stirrings of a new life began to blaze within him. In that moment, he approached the well and rolled the stone away that had kept it sealed, revealing the waters within for the thirsty flocks. The act of strength astonished the women, and they hastened to call Rachel, proclaiming, "Behold, your kinsman's heart is stirred for you." When Rachel arrived, Jacob stepped forth and kissed her, lifting his voice in weeping, for the joy of finding family and belonging surged forth, and in that instant he remembered the vows he had made before the Lord. The new chapter of his life felt possible, even under the heavy mantle of his past. Jacob abode with Laban for the month, tending the flock and learning the ways of his uncle. Time passed, and soon Laban spoke unto Jacob, saying, "Because thou art my brother, shouldst thou serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall be thy wages?" And in his heart, Jacob knew he desired Rachel, for she had stolen his breath with her beauty. "I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter," Jacob declared, his heart set upon her. Laban agreed, and the years unfurled like a flower beneath the sun's warm rays. Yet in the midst of servitude, Jacob remained haunted by the shadows of his past. Would his name always signify deception? Could he rise above the legacy of the supplanter, or was he forever bound by the chains of his own making? Thus, the days turned into years, and the seeds of covenant promises began to take root in unexpected soil. Even as Jacob's strife continued within, the Lord's watchful eye saw beyond the surface, for a transformation was on the horizon, a divine purpose unseen, yet unfolding in ways that would shape the very essence of his lineage. But what Jacob did not yet know was how the God of his forefathers worked even through the pain and toil, preparing him not just for Rachel but for an encounter that would alter his very identity forever. In the silent embrace of the night, God's sovereign plan awaited its moment to unfurl, urging him forward toward a destiny yet unexplored. And it came to be, in the midst of those years marked by the toil of labor, that God's hand began to stir the depths of Jacob's soul. Though the shadow of his past lay heavy upon him, through the providences of divine love, transformation was set into motion. In the nights when the stars twinkled like promises above the horizon, Jacob would seek the Lord, whispering prayers that echoed in the chambers of a heart waking in faith. 7 years passed, and at last, the time for the union of Jacob and Rachel was upon them. Yet, in a twist that mingled joy with the bittersweet taste of trials, Laban, his uncle, deceived Jacob as he had once deceived his brother Esau. On the night of his marriage, the veiled bride was Leah, the elder daughter. As the dawn broke, Jacob's heart crumbled upon the realization of deceit's iron grip. "What is this that you have done to me?" he cried unto Laban, for he had exchanged his love for grief and confusion. But Laban replied with cold fervor, "It is not done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn," pulling Jacob further into a web of earthly struggles and challenges he had once sought to evade. Yet even in this confusion, God's design remained steadfast. The vow of Rachel was delayed, but the Lord's favor would not be withheld, for Leah, though unloved, bore children, each a testament to God's overarching promise. Leah's womb blossomed, producing Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, names marked by the struggles of her heart yet woven with destiny. Each son became a thread in the great fabric of God's providence, a living testimony to the unfolding legacy of Jacob. And as Leah suffered the sting of unrequited love, Rachel's deep sorrow mirrored her heart's longing. Barren as she was, aching for the promise of motherhood, there came a day when Rachel, driven by desperate faith, gave Jacob her maid Bilhah, that she might bear children on her behalf. Thus, a new generation emerged, with Dan and Naphtali, shadows of rivalry entwining their fates. Yet even in the midst of strife, God was working all things together for his purpose, orchestrating a legacy that would alter the course of nations, but as time pressed onward, the layers of conflict remained unresolved. The envy and frustration grew between Leah and Rachel, each wanting to capture Jacob's heart fully. In their struggle, God opened Rachel's womb, and she conceived and bore Joseph, a child foretold to carry the weight of dreams and divine purpose. The revelation of Joseph's dreams brought forth both awe and resentment. "Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf." His brothers, the seeds of envy planted deeply, cast him into a pit, a harbinger of trials yet to come. The price of betrayal rang hollow through the land, as Joseph was sold into slavery, his garments stained with the weight of treachery. In the shadows of Egypt, amid false accusations and prison, the spirit of Joseph remained unbroken. God was with him, stirring within him the gifts of interpretation that would lead to a great revelation, the saving of nations during a time of famine. And through trials, Jacob became the father of the tribes, his sons becoming the fathers of a nation, each point converging toward the destiny long awaited. And in these stirring midst, the time came when Israel, born of Jacob's lineage, was destined to rise as a beacon unto the nations. God's covenant would not falter. As the seed of Abraham unfolded through every heartache and glory, from the line of Judah would come a king, one whose reign would restore all of creation. God's promise, sown in faith, watered by tears and devotion, would find its fruition in the coming of the Messiah, the eternal hope of mankind. Thus the story would echo through the ages, a testament of divine faithfulness through every trial and blessing. God's unmovable hand crafted a legacy birthed from struggle, converging into the perfect plan of his great love, a future promised in the unfolding of his holy name. Beloved, the days are at hand when you, too, can join this narrative of divine hope. Do not wait another moment. Click to subscribe, and stay connected to powerful biblical stories that transform lives today. Leave a like now to spread God's word through the algorithm, and comment below sharing how this incredible journey of Jacob and his legacy has impacted your faith. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear this truth, a truth that can change their lives forever. You need to take action now, for only through sharing and supporting biblical content can we touch the hearts of many and lead them toward the light of life in Christ.